Hi, welcome to this video. The purpose of this video today is to show you how to use the Direct Seeding and Transplanting Schedule tab that is part of this crop planning spreadsheet. So just as a reminder, last week we determined a marketing plan in which we determined how much of each vegetable we needed for each marketing outlet. And as a result, we calculated the total area in square feet of each crop that we needed. So basically that amount plays into column D right here, total theoretical planned crop area per year in square feet. So this number here, for instance for arugula 151.91, is the total area we had calculated times the multiplier factor up here times the safety factor right here. If you recall last week, the total number of square feet did not add up to 5,800. And so I added a multiplier factor to increase everything to a total of 5,800 feet. The safety factor is included because sometimes Mother Nature doesn't play along exactly as we imagined, and so we include a 30% safety factor in everything, which works out to 1.3. So this is the total theoretical area that we've planned. And for each crop, the next column here is what I call the adjusted planned crop area. So this is basically, right now it's just a formula that takes the same value as the theoretical one, but what I would invite you to do is just go through that and just to make sure that there's none that seem like really crazy out of whack, either way too much or way too little. And then you can adjust that amount as you need. So if you have any adjustments, please do it in column E. The next column, F, is the planting frequency. So how often is this crop going to be planted? So there's weekly, like arugula. There's twice, as in we're only going to plant them 2 times in the season for certain crops. There's every 2 weeks for other crops. And there's also once, which means it's crops like Brussels sprouts that are only planted once in the season. So that's the planting frequency. The next column, G, is the number of plantings. So, for instance, if it's once, it's 1. If it's twice, it's 2. For crops that are every 2 weeks, for instance, you have to determine for yourself how many times are you going to plant it every 2 weeks. I've taken a guess, but obviously I don't know your climate, so I don't know. For instance, beets and beans, I've put 4 times. There's other crops that I imagine you can plant more than 4 times. For instance, here, lettuce. Every 2 weeks, I imagine you could plant that 6 times, but it's up to you to determine how many times in total you'll be planting it. And then there's crops that are planted every week, so that's also up to you to adjust. So for instance, spicy greens planted weekly, I assume that would be 12 total plantings, but it's up to you to do that. The next column, H, right here, approximate square feet per planting, is very simply the total area of the crop per year, right here, as you've adjusted it, or maybe you haven't adjusted it, and that's fine, divided by the number of plantings, and it gives you the number of square feet per planting. So that's a guide to help you know how much needs to be planted at every time. Because the next step after all this is to distribute through time, how many plantings and at what date. Because the purpose of this spreadsheet is to create such a clear plan for you and your crew so that everyone knows exactly what needs to be planted, when, and where. So every week you can just look at a column, May 6th we were planning on planting this crop in this bed, this many feet, boom, that's it. Such a clear plan. And so you're going to distribute what's going to be planted when, and I'll show you that. And column I right here basically just makes the total of what's been distributed, or I call it attributed. And this is just a subtraction that says how many were you planning in total minus what you've attributed so far, and that tells you how many you still have left to attribute throughout the season. Finally, up at the top is a little total that just tells us how many square feet in total have been attributed in the crop plan, and thus how many square feet are left. So right now you see there's 5,800 square feet left because we haven't started attributing what crop is going to get planted when. and which is what I'll show you how to do right now. Okay, so basically the first step to start attributing the crops is that you're going to start by defining the planting dates. And so the way I like to work is just to list out the dates using the date of the Monday of that week. So I put the first date as being April 15th. And as I said, you know your climate, so you can put what your first planting date is there. I assumed that by April 15th you would be planting stuff in your greenhouse. It's important to note that this schedule is for planting in the field or in the soil. It's not for seeding in trays. This is a schedule of when you will actually be transplanting something into the soil or directly seeding it into the soil. This is not a greenhouse seeding schedule for seeding trays of vegetables. That will come later. So basically just adjust whatever this date is as appropriate to you, and then the rest of the dates will automatically adjust for 7 days after that. So let's take an example. We have here arugula, for instance. I imagine you'll be planting it weekly, but maybe you'll change. That's up to you. And so basically we would say, all right, so what bed, and this is where all that work you did with mapping out each of your beds is going to be very useful, because now what you need to do is basically go through and have a big paper map of your farm with all the beds in front of you, and just, look, okay, well, where am I going to plant arugula? Okay, so maybe this will be, I don't remember the names of your beds, but I remember they all have people's names. So maybe that would be called Greenhouse Louise. I don't know. Let's call it, that's the name of the bed. And you say, okay, well, I'm going to be planting 10 feet. Actually, I see there's a little mistake here. I'm going to go change this 14 to 12 because maybe there won't actually be 14 plantings. So here we see, okay, how much, in Greenhouse Louise, how many square feet of arugula am I going to be planting? Well, I actually need about 12 per week. And so, or I'm going to plant here, 12. There you go. And here there's a row for notes. So this is where I would list, if I had multiple different types of varieties, I might list the different varieties there, and we can get to that later. So here, basically, you go through every week and say, okay, well then the week after that, it's going to go into Greenhouse Louise again. That'll be the other half of the bed, another 12 square feet. And then, whoops, right now it's going to be outside. It's going to be, let's call it the bed named Bob, another 12 feet. And then, I don't know, Julie, another 12 feet. And so I won't name all of them just because that's long, but basically you would, go through and do that and say, okay, well, I'm going to plant 12 square feet every week until July 1st. Obviously it's up to you to check those dates. And so, here I've just done that, 12 weeks of 12 feet. And so here I see that the total attributed is 144 feet compared to 151 feet that theoretically had been planned. So there's 8 feet difference, which is a pretty small difference. And so I'm comfortable with that. And basically the only thing I would say also is for this kind of crop to add like a double planting for the first week it's planted outside. And so that allows you to harvest that first outdoor crop a little smaller and still have enough to hit that target. So you can get stuff to market just a little earlier. So there you go. That's what it would look like to plan out a crop that's planted every week. And as you can see up here, the total square feet attributed has now increased to reflect the fact that I've planned out my arugula. And it tells me I still have 5,644 square feet available in the garden. And so basically you just have to go through and do this for every single crop. And this is going to create such a clear game plan so that on a given week, all you have to do, you or your team, is just go through and say, hey, okay, May 6th, what do we have planned? Okay, oh yeah, arugula in Julie bed, 12 feet. And there's no notes, so we know that's just the regular kind. Now let's look at a different crop. Let's say we're looking at beets. And once again, obviously, I don't know your dates, so I'm just going to invent stuff. But here we see that we had a plan of 271 feet, square feet of crop. planted every 2 weeks for a total of 4 plantings. So that makes about 70 feet, 67.82 feet per planting. So let's assume that we can plant beets in your climate the first week of May, which actually comes out to be April 29th. And it's going to go into the block name, I don't know, let's call it Jerry bed. Obviously you know the names of your beds and I don't, so I'm just making that up. So Jerry bed, and so we know we need about 60 feet. So let's go, let's say for the first week we'll go with 70. And then so 2 weeks later we're going to go to into the bed I'm calling Beth, another 70 feet. 2 weeks later it's going to be in Hallie, it's another 70 feet. Boom. And a fourth planting another 2 weeks later, the 10th of June. And obviously, you need to adjust these dates based on your knowledge because you're the expert, not me. And we have another one called Felix, and we'll go with another 70 feet. Boom. All right. So here we've planned out 4 plantings of 70 feet, so we have 280 feet total. We see that it's the number is negative, which indicates that we've overshot. Which is okay. It's 8 feet extra. That's pretty close. And yeah, so then we can keep going that way. And so just to give you an example, once this will be all filled out, let's say the week of June 10th, you can just simply look at, okay, well, what do I have to seed on the week of June 10th? And, we can even make it even more easy than that. And we could say, let's put a filter, boom, create a filter. And then so, for instance, on June 10th, you could actually just go and say, well, don't show me anything that's blank, and let's do it. Boom. So then you see here, all right, on this week we have 12 feet of arugula and 70 feet of beets. So that's a way that you could use this tool, and I can show you that more in a later session. So I see I have 3 minutes left on my 15-minute thing. And I noticed that I just forgot one important thing to tell you. So in this column notes, for instance in beets, you might want to take a note to say that it's half-half Cylindra, if I remember your varieties correctly, half-half Cylindra and touchstone. So that would be the type of note you might want to note there, just so that when whoever comes to seed it, up, boom. So then, for instance, we can say, okay, well, this week, what do we need to seed? Just take out the blanks, okay, and then we see that we have, okay, 24 feet of arugula. Oops, I see there's a little mistake here. Sorry about that. We're going to say, show me the blanks also, and we're going to remember to go specify, oh, why is that going to come up? Okay, I see what's going on. So we just say, okay, take out the blanks. Okay. And so we say, okay, April 29th, what do we have to seed? Okay, we have Bob that needs 24 feet of arugula. We have Jerry that needs 70 feet of beets. And we see that we have a note here that is half and half Cylindra and touchstone gold. All right, cool. And then we just take our seeding stuff and we go to the field and we know exactly what needs to be planted, where, and when. And so that's what this tool does, and hopefully this video has been useful. So just to remember to adjust the first week of planting and to go through and make sure that this number doesn't seem totally crazy, and then fill in the planting frequency, number of plantings, and just distribute it through time. So that's that. Thank you, and just send me any questions you might have by email. All right, talk to you soon. Bye.